mutual company, Mutual of Omaha. Companies are responding different ways, but how has Mutual of Omaha pivoted since, candidly, since we got to see each other, and your colleagues and I got to see each other earlier this year? How's Mutual pivoted since COVID-19 has hit us?
Yeah, well, great. And Dan, first of all, let me big thanks to you and to NAILBA for inviting us. It's good to be with everyone. Longtime friends, a longtime supporter of NAILBA, Mutual of Omaha has been.
Definitely.
And thank you for letting me put a sport coat on for the first time in I don't know how many flipping months I've had one of
these. Get the dust off the shoulders, right?
I had to get the brush on it and everything. But like most of our carrier counterparts, we're all still in this kind of work from home environment, or as I'm now going to start referring to it as the triple P, the pandemic pivot process. So all right. Thanks for giving me or coining a term.
Not to be confused with payroll protection
triple plan or whatever, right?
Program, payroll protection program. Let's leave that to the advocacy side of the house.
So obviously limited travel. A lot of virtual meetings, and for us extroverts, God help us all, because we're going stir crazy. Fortunately, I'm blessed with a beautiful wife who puts up with my stuff. But
you married up, Michael.
I'm way above my level. So due to the pandemic, though, obviously we had to learn to pivot to more of a remote sale quicker. Had to learn how to do that, do business a little different than we may have in the past. Certainly working with our distribution partners to see how best to serve and support them in this new environment, as we all scramble to try to figure out, just how we were going to do business. Ironically, and very happy to say, June was our best month ever from a sales perspective. And I think that's most likely due to an increased awareness of the need for life insurance by a lot of people in the U.S. now. And a lot of it was due to the gentleman that's joined me, Marty Johnson, because he has taken a really strategic role in helping us and encouraged us to work with processes like our accelerated underwriting process, which I know Marty's going to talk about in just a moment here. But more importantly, I want to differentiate two different terms. We'll talk about a term called accelerated underwriting, but we'll also talk about a term called automated or point of sale process, which really provides auto decisioning at the point of sale. So that's really helped us quite significantly to address this pandemic.
Well, Slades, let's kick it right over to Marty and jump into that. Marty, we had talked prior to this and just about what's going on at Mutual and how the discussion regarding point of sale, but you had mentioned 3 points that I had written down that I wanted to ask you specifically about was parameds, data-driven decision-making, and what the new rulebook is. So why don't you take a stab at the first one regarding coming out of the point of sale reference that Slades mentioned into parameds.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Hope you can all hear me fine.
That's loud and clear.
All right, great. Yeah, parameds, obviously when we flipped the switch, for us it was on March 13th, I believe. We went immediately to remote land. And therefore, the scramble began trying to figure out how we are going to continue to get business in the door. Obviously, everything was the answer. Electronic, virtual. We knew it was going to be the case for whatever the new normal might be, and for how long, who knows at this point. So one of the first things that we did, obviously, was look at our accelerated underwriting program. Slades made the differentiation between accelerated and automated. But from an accelerated standpoint and the ability to get parameds, we thought could get relatively difficult relatively soon. So we went about expanding our accelerated limits, increasing the face amounts, and eventually the ages to which we were going to accept accelerated business to help alleviate perhaps the difficulty we would have in getting those parameds into the home office. We got that accomplished. I would say that probably, in my opinion anyway, the difficulty in getting those parameds in was not as bad as we anticipated. Yes, we had some specific areas. Obviously, the 5 boroughs of New York were tough. Puerto Rico, there were some spots that made things very difficult. But for the most part, knock on wood, it wasn't horrible. So we accomplished a lot of things because of the pandemic that we wanted to do anyway. It just gave us some impetus to get it done and the ability to get resources within the office to get things completed. So That's sort of the accelerated piece. Obviously, along with that, I think he saw a lot more emphasis on at least a desire to utilize electronic health records. And so there was a lot of movement towards getting that up and, if not up and running, at least running better than it had been previously. And a lot more attention was paid to that and what the utilization rate would be, what the acceptance rate would be with folks being able to, depending on which model you wanted to go with, whether that would be the portal model or whatever you're going to do, get that done. So,
Marty, you had mentioned on our call, and I've heard this from a lot of underwriters and obviously departments as a whole. There's a new rulebook, and I think that's a great reference that you had. NAILBA has 1,400 different BGAs interacting with us. We have 300,000 independent advisors following us, interacting with us in some way. What's the new rulebook? I mean, where do we start reading, and how many chapters did you add?
Well, it's a novel. It's becoming War and Peace, I think, quite frankly. It just keeps going and going. But obviously, we've had the tools that underwriters have used for years. You go back and we can talk about exams, we can talk about labs, we can talk about APSs, and the reasons why we started getting all those. I've been doing this a long time, and there was a time when all we had was smoker or non-smoker, distinct type things, and then all of a sudden we implemented preferred rates and 7 different levels of preferred, and nobody qualified for, but maybe 2 of them, but we had them anyway, and et cetera, et cetera. But obviously, the consumer's driving what they are willing to do, both from an application standpoint, from a requirement standpoint. They are driving how long they'll wait for an answer. They decide how they want to buy and what they're willing to go through. And so therefore, we've had to change the rules. The rules have changed for us, whether we like it or not. So we're using much more data-driven information. We can get a multitude of different risk scores, I'll say. The number of risk scores, I could go on and on about how many different organizations, I won't name names to protect the innocent, but that you can get a risk score for. And we've been forced, whether we like it or not, to utilize those things. We believe that they're close from a mortality perspective to what we could obtain from parameds, labs, et cetera. But I just say close. I think we're still applying them to most of our shelf products. We're not developing and pricing new products to utilize these. But it's something that we've sort of been forced into. But I think it's a good thing. And I think we'll continue down that path.
Slades, I want to bring it back to you. Marty has some really good points there about, and we've had this tone since we kicked this off the symposium about some of this change is good. And it's sad that it's taken a pandemic to change our industry, but regardless, it's happening. I'd love to talk to you or get your thoughts a little bit more about change, the word change, the words on automation. I mean, the NAILBA membership extremely well. How does the traditional BGA adjust? How does the traditional advisor adjust? Because while there's definitely a crowd of BGAs and advisors who are more than ready for this technology wave, there's a crowd that does extremely well and may need a couple of tweaks or a slight kick in the tail to move forward. So what are you seeing on where the biggest changes are for adjustment at the BGA level?
Yeah, so the couple things, right? I mean, one, we talked a little bit about change and expectations from a case management perspective. Yep. We also talked about the changing industry, versus in-person versus online type meetings. So a couple different tacks to get to where we're talking about. Certainly from a case manager, brokerage general agent, internal perspective, the technology it is going to just take us to the level where point of sale, the agent will know before they leave the client's home whether or not they have a sale or not. I mean, that's the goal that we're all getting to from that perspective. So the BGA office has to become more consultative from the standpoint of what are the capabilities or the carrier product capabilities. Certainly, if we looked back 4 or 5 months ago in January, we could have been competing on simply term price. But imagine when there was 0 to no unemployment in your area, or less than 3% unemployment. But fast forward to the pandemic, and at hitting a top rate of 20% unemployment, I imagine a lot of your clients would have liked to have had a term product that had an unemployment rider on it that waived their premiums for 6 months. So that type of consultative, knowing the different products, convincing the client to maybe pay a few more dollars as we go into the future, that's going to become even more so important. And in Mutual of Omaha, I mean, we've seen a tremendous growth in other types of products, right? So for the last, I was actually thinking about it as we got on this call. It was 26 years ago that I was at Lincoln Benefit Life as a field technology specialist, talking about agency management systems and how we could do electronic applications. And here we are 26 years later. I don't think we're a lot closer. We're a lot closer. I don't think we're where we want to be for where we had the vision from 26 years ago. But that's going to certainly pivot and change the support that we're going to have to give. I mean, we had conversations with all these people that were working saying, you need life insurance. And we all know what their answer was. Yeah. I have life insurance through my employer. Well, guess what? 10 to 12,000 of them are retiring every single day, and they don't have an employer anymore. So how do we pivot and give them the products and services they need that are going to support them going into the future?
Slades, I actually want to go back on some of the other products you alluded to, but you also mentioned, and if you wouldn't mind humoring me here, because I'm going to take this opportunity, because we know each other well enough, I'm going to take an opportunity to plug NAILBA. Chad Milner, our chairman, mentioned this past year at NAILBA that NAILBA's rolling out a case manager certification, right? And we are going a very aggressive format this fall on promoting a new type of case manager, the case manager culture. It's not just so much about a training that you take, which is great, which will be great for a person coming into the business, but also the 10, 15-year, 20-year case manager of completing this information and being at an advanced level. And you and I openly discussed that, the traditional case manager role is going to change. When the product lands in the case manager, these case managers need to be, let's use the words professional development. There needs to be a level of professional development that is not going to come via osmosis. You're going to have to invest, because the automation that's in place prior, the easy stuff is going to be quick and fast and out the door, because candidly, that's what the consumer wants.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the days of 25, 30 years ago when the paper came in to the BGA office and the case manager's job was to image it or verify that all the data was in good order or that we had all the pieces, and then package that up and get it to the carrier either through an imaging process into the carrier or through overnight or through faxing. We hope to see those things start to wane in the future as the automation takes hold, because everything gets done electronically online. The technologies have the in good order process already secured within it. So as I said, they move to more of this consultative. Marty has some more practical application and how we've adapted kind of internally in the same ilk, right? This isn't just a BGA evolution that has to take place, a carrier evolution that has to take place from our perspective, because we're not handling those manual processes as much.
Marty, you want to jump in on that? I mean, I'm sure you've seen enough different case manager product to either make you smile or drive you absolutely crazy. So let's talk about that, because candidly, that's where NAILBA's putting our feet forward in ensuring that BGA case managers, it's a different culture. It's no longer an entry-level position, because you know what the biggest observation was to me, and this really doesn't tie to underwriting, but I know an active NAILBA member when they have a good case manager or case managers. When their case manager role is struggling, I don't know that member because we don't see them. Their hands are underneath the hood, and in order to move business forward. So if you would elaborate, I'd really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the role has changed both from the BGA office and as well as internally. I mean, it's grown internally for us from the standpoint of they're inundated with so much data coming in every day because of all of these vendor sources that we're using to make decisions with. And they're the first point of contact that comes across. And so I guess I call it triaging that information every day, all day long. As that comes in, they're looking at that, and they've really probably risen to a role in our organization anyway, to the old jet underwriter type situation, to where they're triaging that information, they're making decisions based on what those factors are that come in, and deciding whether can a case continue down the automated path, down the accelerated path. Can we make a decision and issue a policy, or does it have to go down the traditional underwriting path, and we've got to order exams, labs, et cetera, some of the old traditional case manager type of duties. But they're very valuable resources. Obviously, the relationship component they've got to have with the BG offices is still there, and is still number one in my book. As far as I'm looking at from a case management perspective. That, and we've got to keep that going and bring that BGA office case manager along with them and explain what's going on. So if we can keep everybody on the same page, things go a lot better.
It's just a time that we all invest in our foundation, and the case manager role needs to elevate, because we're confident that our training will help increase placement, and that's a win for the BGA, and that's obviously a win for the carrier. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 1% to 2% increase in placement the more we elevate the case manager role. Slades, I want to come back to you. You alluded to different products that Mutual Omaha has been looking at. I had some of your colleagues on prior, Kevin Brayton and Linda Levine and Jerry Blair from North America, and they were talking about where they see their companies going. What products they've been able to pick up a lot on. Obviously, the obvious answer is, we're back to a lot of term, right? But there's increases elsewhere. Do you want to share a little bit on where you're seeing Mutual of Omaha? What's right now most attractive to a lot of advisors and BGAs?
Yeah, great. And by the way, nice job by all three of them on that panel. So a lot of insight. Obviously, it's great for me, because I've been in the industry for so long, to see our industry, really develop to this level. As you know, over the last 6 years, we've seen tremendous growth in our simplified issue product portfolio. Chad is a perfect example of somebody who pivoted a business model and really was extremely successful at it. I would just say that we're a little bit more unique than some of our carrier brethren out there, with all due respect to them, because we compete in a lot of different markets. When you think about a med sup provider, you think about Mutual of Omaha, final expense, DI, CI. Some of our BGA partners have discovered our annuities are really good of late. Which for a long time
if they haven't, they better soon.
Right. And then of course, our competitive IUL product, which we think we have a very unique story with the low cost and the only IUL in the industry with a return of premium on it. So we're trying to be a lot of different flavors to a lot of different people. And while that story is outstanding over the last 5 years, I think the most exciting part for me, especially as kind of my later years in life in this industry, and, counting down the days to retirement with a young daughter that's in the industry and another daughter that was industry and a wife that's in the industry, is that we have a lot of distribution partners that I go to their meetings and I don't hear, well, the average age of an agent is a 59-year-old male that looks like me, looks and talks like me. One of our distribution partners, the demographic for their standard agent is a 35-year-old Hispanic female. Hallelujah. The industry is growing from a standpoint of these younger agents, and they're adapting much easier to the technology, right? They're not recalcitrant to kind of get online and use tools like virtual meetings and e-applications. And they have this much larger proclivity with technology than we do. And as a result, that is why I think because we've been able to pivot to these technology solutions, we have seen strong growth even through this pandemic.
Well, Slades, let's jump on that a little bit, because you and I, we get to work out together, and we're at these meetings, and we talk about different things that are going on. And
Right.
we at one point we discussed there's a $1.6 trillion student debt problem in this country.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have an industry that's aging on the producer level, at the BGA level, and clearly the amount of jobs, especially now post or hopefully soon post pandemic, the opportunities are going to shrink, but the insurance opportunities are there for the right people who could understand what having a digital footprint is all about and understand how to make sales over the phone again and using computer. You're in charge of a national sales effort for Mutual of Omaha. Where are you seeing the most ground be gained right now? And have you had any of those sort of scratch the head moments like, that's pretty inventive of the person taking that path?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell the folks on this phone call anything that they're not already aware of from a standpoint of the challenges with recruiting agents, right? And as a father of 5 millennials, I will tell you that obviously getting them to act and do some of the things that I did when I was growing up. When I was a young man working my first couple of jobs, my boss told me to jump. My question was how high, right? They have a very independent spirit about them. The good news about that is that gives them a very entrepreneurial spirit. You have to have kind of an independent streak in you to get to that level. And as most of the people on this call know, because most of them are entrepreneurs from that standpoint. So there is this huge opportunity, but it is kind of an unbridled energy. It doesn't know how to do what we know how to do. They need to be trained on a sales concept, whether that sales concept be final expense, whether it be mortgage term, whether it be income replacement. We know all of the techniques. We don't automatically have to go to buy, sell, right? We can get those big type cases there. But if we can teach them a pattern for going and having a conversation, just like I did when I had my first sales job 40 years ago. I won't tell you what it was because it was in timeshare. But I was taught a process, right? Do this, and don't go outside the process. And as soon as these folks learn to do that, you're seeing, these people making $250,000, $350,000. We just had another young man sell his business to a large IMO. I just got the email today. He's going to be a multimillionaire before he's 30 years of age. So, and that doesn't happen to everybody, but the whole goal here is that is the next generation coming up. And then they're going to need education. They're going to need all of the people that are part of the NAILBA community to kind of be the mentors and maybe guide them and kind of bridle that a little bit and take them into a direction where we can, do the next generation of agents that are going to be financial planners and help people protect their families for years to come.
I had an attendee, Marty, I'm going to bring you back on and unmute you here. But I had an attendee when we first logged on saying, you know what, I've been in the industry a long time. I need help on digital sales. And, now is the time, when I came out of the legal world, they would say, you have to sharpen the axe. Well, You know what? I don't really want to apply sharpening the axe to life insurance, but because that just goes into a different direction. But we have to invest in professional development. And I know there are lots of carrier opportunities out there for increasing digital sales. There's lots of material that, a group like NAILBA or our sister associations are putting out there. But, I'd actually like Slades and Marty, I'll throw sort of a toss-up ball here, saying, what can we expect from Mutual of Omaha moving forward? Is there going to be a bigger investment or continued investment, in professional development to help with those digital sales opportunities? Are we going to see different products, Marty, I used the example earlier in our conversation that a restaurant that gives away free ice cream on your birthday, you can't take it away once you start doing it. So your underwriting changes now have impact moving forward. So you guys can have it as a toss-up. Whoever wants to go first, no problem. But what are the expectations from Mutual of Omaha moving forward? Marty, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah, technology is going to drive everything that we do. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle. We've figured out that it works. people are willing to do it. They've tried it. It's successful for them, and they're willing to move forward. Slades mentioned the millennials and how, they're a little bit impatient perhaps, and they want everything now. They're not going to sit still for the 30 to 60 day underwriting time period that we've had, for years, and it was just sort of accepted that's how long it took. They're going to want the point of sale decision. They're going to want to know, did I get my policy or did I not? But when the advisor is leaving the house, and that's
okay,
what.
Marty, let me interrupt you. Just crystal ball, right? You've been around, you've been in the business a while. What's your crystal ball now, moving forward, for the young advisor on the time they sit down with Mrs. Johnson, whether it's via Zoom or they're picking up the phone? What's the timetable we're looking at on a vanilla set of parameters? Obviously, I don't want to get into the complex side of parameters.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it when they walk out the door. I mean, we're going to give them a decision when they leave, and so they know that. And
That's
we'll
fantastic.
have button and e-policy delivery, and we're done and move on to the next call. I've got another lead I got to go take care of.
Right. That's fantastic. Slades, kicking that back to you to sort of wrap this up. Obviously, Mutual of Omaha is tight around the brokerage community. A lot of the NAILBA members work with Mutual of Omaha for obvious reasons, but between you and Mark and Tess, I mean, what do you guys have in mind for the next, I don't know, call it 10 to 18 months? I know that's a big span, but this is the opportunity to roll out product and make some tweaks and adjust to people like Marty looking at the rulebook and saying, you know what, we could bridge the gap faster by doing this. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll be cognizant of the time constraint here. So Dan, I'll try to keep it short. From a standpoint of, first of all, let me just tout that Marty's vision 3.5 years ago to put the technology in the back end, the auto decisioning processes, really kind of helped springboard us to where we are today. I'm not saying we're perfect from where we want to be, but we are certainly farther along than we could have been had we not started down that process to get those brains, if you will, in the back end that automate that process. So technology is going to drive everything. We see an aging population from a standpoint of the boomers. As I mentioned earlier, we're certainly going to offer the products like a critical advantage product that covers you for cancer, heart attack, and stroke. A simple conversation your agent can have to say, hey, do you know anybody, or do you expect to have cancer or a heart attack and stroke? Yes, I would love to get extra cash in that situation. Having those conversations, having a simple process, you click a few buttons, and then the brains in the back do the automated issue. So before you leave the person's house, you've got the policy issued, you can send them an email with that policy, and you can get paid the next day. That is the future. As far as products are concerned, it's going to be, as we always do, a wide breadth of products that support our distribution, whether that be IUL, whether that be term, whether that be a final expense type platform, or any of those critical illness, chronic illness, or disability type products to support you throughout your life. And including that policy, I got 7 of them right here for my grandchildren, children's whole life policies to protect them for their future. So, it's a wide breadth, and there's a lot of things. We want to try to support the distribution platform as best we can with the products that they're going to need in the future.
Well, there's no doubt Mutual Omaha is one of the leaders in our industry. I really want to thank you guys for just coming on and taking a little bit of time to talk to the NAILBA BGAs and the advisors and the industry partners here. Marty, it's great to meet you in person. Slades, it's great to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, we'll see each other soon. We will gather again.